evening, my name's Angie Greaves from Magic, and I would like to say a very big thank you to the Dress for Success ladies who organise these great events, the Power of Women Awards, also the panel discussion. I've been a recipient of a Dress for Success Power of Women Award for my services to radio, and I'm just really pleased that Juanita Ingram, Fanula Shannon, and also Susan Denmead asked me to get involved. Sometimes I think we like to get involved with things when they're harvested. But I think it's actually quite nice to get involved in events when the seeds are sown and you can grow with the harvest. Does that make sense? And there's some really good things that Dress for Success are doing. And what I do love about the panel event is that we can talk to women and hear what they have to say and why they decide to get involved with this specific charity. So this evening, we have the most recent award winner on our panel, Dr. Sue Bewley. Please give it up for Sue. And you can talk about what you got your award for on Monday. Yeah, that was just lovely, really lovely. Next to Sue, we have Razwana Akram. Let's hear it for Razwana. And we have African Princess. Oh! Miss Adenyke Israel-Bolarinwa. And we also have Miss Funke Abimbola, MBE. Please give our panel a warm round of applause. Now, because it's the panel talking, I'm going to stand over here so that you can actually concentrate on them. Do you know the singer? Who's that singer that covers her face because she doesn't want her? Sia. I love the fact that when Sia's on the Ellen DeGeneres show, she covers her face or she turns her back because she wants the audience to concentrate on the talent and the creativity. So I'm going to stand over here. Well, yeah, no. No, I wouldn't like a chair. I'm very well, thank you. So Juanita is going to start with our opening remarks, and then I am going to take over and start the event. Now, do you want this mic, Juanita? Sure. You take this. Well, it can go on your belt. So.
Okay. There you go. I'll just hold it. I'll be very brief. Thank you all for coming out. Welcome. Dress for Success, as many of you already know, is an organization that helps unemployed women get back into the workplace. We give them interview attire and interview training. The Power of Women Awards and the Power of Women panel is in its third year, and we're really excited to have all of you with us. I won't belabor the evening. We're going to get right into it. I'm going to hand it right back over to Angie. I know that was quick, but thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate it. On your chairs, you'll see a flyer about the Little Black Dress Club. We'll play a video at the very end that explains more about what that is. But right now, we're going to get right into the panel discussion. So thank you so much for coming out.
Okay. I'm going to allow each lady to introduce herself, and then we're going to discuss this month's theme, or this year's theme for International Women's Month, which is Balance for Better. And I think it's really important that we get to grips with what balance for better means. I said on Monday evening, the fact that we want balance for better gives me the impression that we are unbalanced. So I think through the panel, we're going to talk about what they do and how they are striving for balance, and how, as I was saying on Monday, sometimes we must also accept that the part we play may not necessarily see the results, but just knowing we've played a part to get to that place of balance, I think is very, very important. So, can I start with you, Adenyke? Can you let the room know what you do and why you strive to do what you do?
Thank you very much. My name is Adenyke Israel-Bolarinwa. I, like most women here, probably wear different hats. I currently work as a consultant, but my passion and the company that I run is called Building Right Relationships. And I think I've always been passionate about relationships. I've always been passionate about issues to do with marriage and dating, courtship, wholeness for women, for men, parenting, all of those sort of things. And as I've gone through different experiences in life, I've actually found a lot of value in the ability for us to not just connect with each other, but to understand that given everyone's journey, everyone's story, we are all truly created to connect and to enrich each other's lives. And I think that is always very evident with women. So within Building Right Relationships, we run different programs. We run programs for youth, for singles, for married, but some of the ones I really enjoy are the ones we run for women, and we do some mentoring as well. And I think it's always been an organic thing for me. I've always just connected with people at different times and always looked to empower people. And that's where I would say my journey has brought me. And I guess as we talk more, I'll be able to share more. I'm married, I have 3 daughters, and that has really taught me a lot as well. A lot of virtues that I've had to pick up along the way. And I guess we'll talk about that as we go along. Thank you.
Next generation, you're going to be nurturing the next generation of women. Thank you.
So my name is Funke Abimbola. I am a solicitor, business leader, and also diversity campaigner. Those are and importantly, most importantly of all, I'm a mom. I've got a 16-year-old son who is eagerly waiting for me to come back home this evening because he's in the middle of his second set of GCSE mocks. Let me just let that sink in for a second. So he's already texted me, when are you going to be back home? I pride myself on, my work as a solicitor. I've been practicing for almost 19 years. But I'm passionate about eliminating inequalities. I initially focused on gender-related stuff because of some of the experiences I had when I returned from maternity leave. Horrific, absolutely awful. And then I moved on to race and then social mobility, focusing on the solicitor's profession. That is my almost exclusive focus. I feel very passionate about young people as well. And because I'm the mother of a son, I feel a huge sense of responsibility around the role that men play in this whole gender debate, actually. So my son signed up to He for She. And he's a STEM ambassador. I may or may not have influenced that decision. The jury is out, but I think it's very important that we recognise that men have a huge role to play in this whole balance. So that's me.
Thank you very much. I'm a little bit older. I'm at the end of my career, which has been very long and varied, and medicine has been, fantastic to me. In fact, I'm a very privileged woman. I'm a 4th generation doctor. Dr. Bewley's come off the GMC for the first time in about 150 years now. So my parents came over in the 1950s, no Irish, no dogs, no black, because they were Irish doctors, and met discrimination then in the 1950s. And I went to university so I started as a medical student 45 years ago, and that was a time when rape and marriage was legal. We'd only just got the pill and abortion rights, which needed defending. The first Women's Liberation Conference in Britain was held in Oxford when I was there. So I was in that wave of feminism, and I thought things would be a lot better by now for my daughter. And I'm really shocked seeing a teenager grow up to think, but wait a minute, the gender pay gap was 30% 30 years ago. When I wasn't looking. Anyhow, so I trained in obstetrics and gynecology for various reasons. Partly there wasn't very many drugs to prescribe, and there was only 1 or 2 operations that weren't very difficult. But I loved it, and it's because I'm very committed to women and women's health. And women's health is a necessary pillar for taking part in society as citizens, and obviously looking after women through pregnancy. I ended up doing very, very high-risk pregnancies where women's lives were threatened, or their babies' lives were threatened. And I ended up, because I'm very curious, doing a lot of research. And so that's why I think I'm here, because serendipitously I met somebody at a party. We were talking. She was a forensic psychiatrist, and we ended up doing the first study of domestic violence during pregnancy in the UK, finding very much higher rates than people thought. And we then set up services, and we set up a model where we trained staff to help people speak. Of course, this midwife would get no disclosures, and that midwife would get 1 in 4 disclosures. So people won't talk to you about things that are very stigmatising, and they're very frightened of your judgment unless you give them, well, I'm not saying you, but so we set up services, and then so that midwives, and now it's mandatory through the NHS that midwives will talk to people and ask and offer services, and nicely the National Advice for Guidance says everybody should have pathways to community-based organisations. And the reason I think I was going to say fell in love with Fionnuala, but that's probably a bit strong. But the reason we clicked is that, you know, we care about the same things, and I visited Dress for Success, and I have seen the journey that women take. And, you know, the health service is a place where we see the most damaging effects, mental and physical. The physical injuries actually heal much quicker than the mental injuries. And part of the, you know, getting to a place that's safe and secure and then getting to flourishing relies on a lot of people in a chain, which is what I was talking about the other day. And so now I'm retired, still very curious, still doing academic work, still involved in work with women living with HIV and maternity action, which is about women losing their jobs. 1 in 5 women, 54,000 women a year in this country, their job is insecure because they have a baby. So there's a lot, and men can't have babies, so we're never going to get that balanced. We're never going to get that balanced, but we do need, just like the army has a kind of, we look after our soldiers because they put themselves in the firing line for us. Actually, women do a job for society, and we need a maternity covenant, and that's why all these human rights that are related to women are so important as well. So I think that we, you know, that's the maternity covenant. I'm rambling on.
Hello, I'm Razwana, Yasmin Akram, partner in Simons Muir and Burton, so welcome to our offices. I specialise in media finance. I started off wanting to be a human rights lawyer, but ended up in this space. But what has always driven me has been beauty and empowerment. And I found over the last few years, I've sort of straddled, not consciously, perhaps unconsciously, into the art world. And why art, I'm often asked, and why not working in sort of equality in a more sort of traditional sense? I think art is so important. It unlocks our inner world, and it allows us to express our inner world and our inner wealth. And it's often, you see in spaces that women are denied basic education, and that also goes to basic equipment to express themselves. So my passion really is Asian and African art. We are collecting predominantly work from Asian and African diaspora, and that is what's driving my passions at this moment. My partner and I also work very closely with malaria. We are looking to, my partner is creating a vaccine which is hopefully going to counter the impact of malaria. So those are the two sort of strong passions that we have in our lives. But I come back to creativity and how important it is. I found myself 2 years ago suddenly making a film, and it wasn't your traditional film, it was more sort of avant-garde film. And I think if we allow ourselves to slow down and find balance, we find that we exist in other realms. We're not just one person in this life. We have other capabilities. So whether it's transitioning from a lawyer to business development, or whether it's moving from academia to other sort of creating that maternity covenant, it's all within us. And all we need to do is just to have that faith, that confidence, and that balance to realign.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. I'm going to have a bit of a mini debate here, but I think it would be really good also to throw open the floor for questions, because I think one of the things that we tend to do when we come to events of this nature is, and I'm going to say it, we tend to listen to speakers, listen to panels. A lot of the time we want to ask questions but don't, and that's why, in my opinion, we end up going to, dare I say, the same seminars over and over again, but not actually hearing anything different. I heard the word diversity from I beg your pardon, from Funke, and straight away I'm thinking, I know I've been to so many diversity seminars that are all the same, and nothing much comes out of them. And I do think that it's time for maybe just one person to have the guts to step forward and make a difference so that change can actually be made. One of the things I noticed is that you spoke very much about your passions first, and then your careers, and then your creativity. So I'm going to start with you, Sue, because don't look like that, because one of the things that really struck me on Monday when you picked up your award was just how much you are doing, not just in terms of sexual health, sexual abuse, etc. But when you then started to talk about sexual abuse in pregnancy, I've got to be honest, I just was like, whoa, that was too much for me to handle. So how do you go about handling that? How do you go about working with people to get a result? Because I'm going to assume that you've got to kind of separate yourself emotionally in a way in order to get through to the person.
Thank you. It is a good question, and I think sometimes we glaze over because we can't cope with the thought of climate change and we'll all be dead, but we have to do it. So first of all, you do it in small bites.
Right.
Second of all, in the 1980s, a few feminist doctors. This was one of the things about feminism and doctors entering medicine in larger numbers. Started opening up the sexual assault referral centres with the police because there was a terrible documentary of nobody's old enough in the 1980s. Roger Graves had a fly on the wall camera of the police interviewing a woman who'd been raped, and it was absolutely horrendous. It was so embarrassing. Everything had to change. And I remember I was attacked as a medical student. Someone climbed in a first floor window, and I'd heard a noise, and suddenly a man was running at me. I happened to have a knife in my hand.
Oh.
As it happened, because my sister had thought there was an attacker a week before. I said, "Don't be silly," and I went to the window, and there was an open window. So I was screaming, and the police came around, and they were just terrible. And so these had sensitised me, and a lot of women were saying women deserve better services. So they started setting up, and I went to Scotland Yard, and I went to a course, and I couldn't cope with it, and it was too upsetting, and I knew I wasn't emotionally up to it. So it was only at the end of my career, when I think after 40 years of being a doctor, that sense of I've got to be here in the moment with that person, and then I've got to turn off. I've got to bring authenticity and genuineness, but I can't take it all home. So I think that is something that doctors practice, and there's a lot of evidence that psychopathic doctors carry on, earn lots of money, and are very happy, and really kind doctors burn out with depression. So you have to have that mixture of being able to meet somebody and say, "Nice to meet you. Terrible problem, we've got to go straight to theatre for an emergency," and on the other hand listen to someone crying about her stillbirth, her 15 miscarriages or whatever it is. So that mixture is something in medicine, and I think I was only able to do that at the end of my career, and it was a tremendous privilege, because actually spending 4 hours with someone right at the beginning of a very traumatic, mostly coming with the police, very traumatized, and actually just being able to give something, collect information, and be kind. It's a privilege to do that. And we had support, and they had psychological services and things as well. And many of the women who are in those services have personal experience, and they make meaning, and they make art, and they're very creative people, because they want to turn pain into power. I did some work with some adult survivors of child sex abuse, and we had a charter. They were going to call it "Turning Shit into Gold," but they decided that was a bit rough. So but I think that is something that I've learned. It's been amazing.
I wanted to ask Sue a question.
Yeah, no, go for it.
In terms of having its boundaries. So is it not taught at medical school or during your career, or are you expected to find your own tools to create that switch, so you switch off effectively when you go home?
No, it's not. It's not taught. It's not taught. I mean, it's talked about, and there's black humour, and there's alcohol, and there's friends and family, and there are communication skills, and you see people, and you talk, in human ways, and when something goes wrong, how you cope with it, and how people help you, and everyone does that differently, and medicine's very different now than 45 years ago.
It's almost, you're witnessing, you're seeing so much violence, you're hearing about violence, so the fact that you're not even equipped, you have to sort of self-equip yourself to deal with that. That's really surprising.
Well, I think probably in psychiatry and general practice, they spend a lot more time thinking about that because they're much more involved with people. From a surgical specialty, you're much more used to coming in, doing your thing and going. So different characters do self-select into different specialties. Probably different characters go into different parts of business and different parts of law as well. So you find your balance. You find your balance.
The theme for this year's International Women's Month is balance for better. So Funke, as you've taken the mic, let me ask you, and well, no, but I love the fact as well that you mentioned that you have a son. And so as much as we as women are taking the steps to have our voices heard on a balanced level to men, as a woman now, as a woman with a son, you need to be aware of how you tread, because you're going to be your son's first teacher as to how women need to be treated.
Absolutely.
How are you finding yourself going about that?
Yeah. So
do you have a daughter by any chance? Or
No,
just a son?
I just have
right,
one
so,
child.
So
one
this
son.
really, however you do it, this is it.
Yeah. You're absolutely right about that.
No.
It's very.
But you know what I mean.
She's right. She's absolutely right. And it's funny, we were talking about this. We were actually talking about this earlier. For me, that has really shaped and defined my diversity campaigning. It's made me understand the role of men in a way that I don't think I could possibly have appreciated if I'd had daughters. I saw tangible change in the solicitor's profession when I started engaging with the senior partners who were predominantly male. And because when men feel excluded from this is a problem with a lot of gender initiatives. A lot of men feel excluded from the whole debate. They feel as if they're being sidelined. And that in itself is a really dangerous thing. When the men are in the positions of influence to actually drive the change, we need to be actually partnering a lot more. And that's why I like he for she so much, because the focus, that is, you need to look at where the power is. With my son, though, it was interesting. I was mentoring a young man who was a solicitor, whose wife was the surgeon. So he had lied for 3 years that he wanted to become a partner at the firm, because the assumption was as a man he would want to become a partner, and it was always going to be the women who wouldn't or would want to work flexibly or whatever. So he was wanting to leave on time to pick up his daughter from nursery because his wife was a surgeon. And so for 3 years he lied about it, and and he was like, I can't admit. And I said, but you need to. You can't. The stress that was causing him. And I suddenly realised that he can't be alone. There must be, out of that generation, that could be my son in a few years. So that's why, for me, I'm very aware of engaging the young men and the men in general. And that's been hugely effective. I mean, for me, I found it has really shifted the dial.
In engaging with the men and in creating the change, are you finding, you said that some men are feeling a bit sidelined.
Yeah.
My assumption is because they've always by default had the lead.
Yes.
To all of a sudden be in company of women who dare to open their mouths and who dare to say, right, I'm going to step onto your territory. And because of, movements now, maybe in the past, men could have just said, no, you're not. Yeah. But now it's got to be done a bit more effectively, with a bit more compassion. And I'm wondering how men feel about that.
Yeah. So the way I put it, because I've had to have very frank conversations with these men who feel threatened. I've been very, very frank and said, unfortunately, because of the balance of power, imbalance, the corporate world is full of mediocre men. I'm not going to be, playing that down. But if you have had an open door and everything's been fine, statistically and just looking at the data, you can't have a whole cohort of outstanding men in any environment. So if you're not mediocre, So if you're truly outstanding at what you do, you have nothing to worry about. Of course, at that point, a lot of them start shifting and, because they know that they've not been outstanding. They know they're not great leaders. They know that things have just been laid out for them. An outstanding man will have no problem in this whole debate. A mediocre man is out. I'm sorry. And that's what I say. I'm very frank about it, but that's the reality.
Okay. So, Adenyke, you have 3 daughters. Can I ask how old they are?
Okay. 15, soon to be 14 and 12.
Okay. So
No.
you are tired. No, emotionally, because it's a lot to give, isn't it? And with being girls as well. So unlike Funke, who has sons, I would have assumed it would be a more straightforward role to encourage your girls, just to say, look, this is the year of the girl, this is the time of the girl, come on now, get going, you can put your best foot forward. Do you find that sometimes you have to, not necessarily edit your conversations, but you've got to show a little compassion, because as times are changing, and I was saying this on Monday, my nephews, when I was saying to them, what do you think about Doctor Who being a woman? They were like, what are you talking about? It's just Doctor Who, because they're born into that time, so they're not seeing us saying, oh, isn't it wonderful that Doctor Who is a woman? They're born into that time. Your girls are now in this time of saying, right, we can put our best foot forward. Do you encourage them just to go in there with drive and gusto, or do you encourage them to maybe take baby steps?
Good question. So thankfully I'm not as tired as I should be because my husband is very hands-on. Good. And he has always been very hands-on. And I think that has been something amazing. I think Razwana, we're talking about this, and I think with Funke as well, about the importance of bringing men along, especially when we women are doing stuff. So I've always been on the front line. I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of traveling. So thankfully, 2 amazing things that my husband does really well. Cooking. Yeah. He cooks beautifully, those who know, And he's always had his own business, and that has given us the flexibility that we needed. So for me, at times with my girls, I tend to want to show them that there are different paths to life, because the path that they see me take isn't always the conventional way for a lot of people. And that's okay as well, because I may be, by personality, by what I think is my life's passion, I'm very much a speaker, I'm very much an advocate on issues. But when I look at my daughters, I already see very different talent, skills, personalities, and it behooves me to try and get them to appreciate the principles that needs to guide the lives and the choices they make, as opposed to either an agenda or the need to fight for a right or anything else like that. So one of the things I think is very important is just as we raise girls, you're so right there, they're not able to appreciate. So I grew up in Nigeria, born, went back to Nigeria, came back to uni and A-levels and uni and all of that. And I find that my conversation with the girls, there's always that generational gap sometimes. There's still an appreciation of how far we've been able to come, first from the society that we grew up in and where we are today. They were born in America. They have always had this girl power mentality before we moved back to the UK. So they have this concept of you can do anything. You can be anything. The American dream is there, and they're gradually starting to find out that irrespective of that, life just basically has challenges. Yeah. No matter what advancement we make for women, both men and women will have challenges. More importantly, your ability of who you are, I feel, is what really drives the change. And I think that's part of my passion when it comes to young girls. It's mentoring. It's realizing that no matter where you're dropped in life, when you have the principles, the values, and most importantly, the vision, no matter the barrier set before you, you can always rise above it. And at the end of the day, there really isn't any barrier beyond what you allow for yourself. So like you said that, I want to be careful not to raise mediocre daughters as well. Because the time can come when all that we've said, they just take it. People have had to pay a price for where we are today, and they have to be careful not to be mediocre, but to appreciate that that price is for you to excel and to keep excelling and to bring the men along as well, because there is value in both genders. And we don't want to tip to the other side as well.
We need balance, and I mean, I say it all the time. You know, East is as far as West. You know, up, down, hot, cold, male, female. We need balance, and I just think it's really important. Can I ask any ladies in the room, how many of you work with majority men? So most of you in the room. Okay. Do you find that you have to unconsciously apologise if you are creatively stronger than your male counterparts?
Yes.
You do?
Disarm.
Not anymore? You used to. So when did you find that started to change? I'm not saying put a date on it. Was it just something that you found just, you know, you
Yeah, unfortunately, time, confidence, the two things connected.
Yeah.
Get to the point where you just get bored of it.
couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
But I'd like to help other women do that earlier. You don't have to wait to get there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To have that.
So maybe this is where it comes to just being born in that time. Because I believe the work we're doing now is laying the foundation so that the next set of girls who come along won't have to apologise at all, or won't have to apologise as long as we've apologised. Yeah? You had your hand up, my love?
With the predominantly male environment, you kind of have to like bring yourself up to feel, to compete.
So if I'm reading it correctly, do you bring the male spirit home?
For the first 20 minutes.
And then it kind of dissolves. But you know, a woman can walk in a room and without saying a word, she can completely change the atmosphere. Do you know what I mean? And it's a shame that we can't just go to work, be ourselves, but almost feel that we have to up the ante a bit to keep up with it. But then, I mean, do you have children? Okay, when you have children, you're going to find you're going to have to dissolve that a lot quicker. But you just, it does happen. It does happen. But it's interesting that you've said, you know, stopped apologising because it got boring, and it does. Because if you can do your job, you can do your job. And it's as simple as that. But it was also good that you were saying, like, you know, it would be good that we get to the stage where we can teach our daughters or the next generation that they don't have to keep apologising well into their 30s and 40s. Hello. Hit it. Go for it.
I have a 9-year-old niece.
Nice.
And she's had long hair without a fringe, and she messaged me to say, I've had a fringe cut, Auntie Donna. And I said, oh, that's fabulous, you look gorgeous. And she said, Harvey, who's her boyfriend, doesn't like it. And she told Harvey, no one tells me what to do with my hair.
Well, there you go. So you know when she's 18, she's going to be running her own company. There you go. I'd like to talk about gender pay gap. I know. It's one of those subjects that I don't know if or when it will ever be dissolved. But it's there. We don't have to whisper about it. We don't have to tiptoe. It is there. I'm going to start with you, Razwana. Do you find in your job you are paid less than a man, and do you know how much by?
I'm not paid less than any man on my
Can we give her a round of applause, please?
I mean, gender pay, we have to speak about the Equality Act.
Mm-hmm.
So it's equal pay for equal work. But, you know, I don't think the Act understands sort of structural inequalities that exist. So if you're a single woman raising a child, you cannot compete with a man who has the back office at home, who has the wife, the carer. So he's serviced. I mean, I forgive me if I sound rude, but that's the reality.
Yeah.
I was speaking to a friend today over lunch, and she's a single parent, and I was discussing this very subject matter. And she she's always been able to hold down a job, extremely talented, but she found that when she had her child, who's now 6, she started losing work, she started slipping down the greasy pole, and that's simply because she just could not compete with men on an equal basis. So we can have the Equality Act, but if structural inequalities are not dealt with, then it means nothing.
Yeah. Has anyone in the room seen the film Baby Boom with Diane Keaton?
Many years ago, with Sam Shepard. Yes. Yeah.
Amazing.
Gorgeous Sam Shepard.
Gorgeous Sam Shepard. But does anybody know that film? Okay. It was just something you mentioned about a woman with a child doing her job but not being able to compete.
To compete on it.
Right.
Terms, yeah.
It's about a lady who was a real high-powered advertising executive, J.C. Wyatt. It was with Diane Keaton. She was amazing, and she was called the Tiger Lady. And she inherited something from her 5th removed cousin from England, and it happened to be a baby. So she goes to pick up what she thinks is a painting and is going to go and sell this painting for millions, and the solicitor plonks this baby on her. Now, she was the Tiger Lady, and she decided that she was still going to be the Tiger Lady with this baby, and she was going to get the nanny, and she was going to get the cleaner, and she was going to do it all, and still be the Tiger Lady. She keeps up her job, and she wants to become partner in this advertising agency. And her life slows down because of this child. And there is a scene in that film that I will never forget when she's being moved from one very, very high-powered account to a less high-powered account. And her boss says to her, "It's okay to slow down." He says, "I've got 5 kids, 15 grandkids. I don't even know when their birthdays are because I have a wife." And that what you just said, it really...
Back office.
Yeah, there you go. It really, really resonates. But I do think the balance is getting better. But I also think it's a choice now, more so. If you don't want to do, the 40-hour week and kids have kids, I think it's better that we can have that choice than feel that we need to be forced to do it to keep up with our male counterparts. Does that make sense?
Maybe the men don't want to do it either.
Well,
I'd like to hope that they don't want to do it. They also slow down, because I don't want to be the only one that slows down.
Well, I think the term house husband now is more acceptable than it has been in years. I mean, if you'd said house husband 10, 15 years ago, a man would have been known as a... Yeah, but do you know what I mean? But so I just think from that point of view, there is a little bit of balance. But that just really hit home what you were saying about, we do have a different role to take. We can still have our jobs. I think we can still be as high-powered as we want to be. But when a man does have that network around him that allows him to keep going, it does sometimes feel a little bit of unbalanced, doesn't it?
Not a level playing field.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to speak, Sue?
I do, because I've watched women giving birth and not giving birth for 45 years. And I've seen a massive change, which I ended up writing a very controversial editorial in BMJ, which was called "Which Career First?" And it was about the enormous change in women when they were having children, so that we've seen a doubling of infertility. We're seeing rises in miscarriage, we're seeing rises in complications, and we're seeing a mixture of... No woman should be bullied into having a child she does not want, but I think that there is a huge silent loss around miscarriage. And doctors have the longest training of the lot, 6 years training, and then about 15 before you get to be a consultant. And a lot of people, I think, we've now got a society which is almost toxic to having children. It's frightening. You might lose your financial independence, you might lose your mind, you might lose your children, you might lose everything. And so there's this race. Women want, those who do want to nest, want to do it well, and they look and they see their friends, and we're all going on, and then some drop off and some don't. And so I was writing about what I'd seen, which is a real change in that balance between what I want in my heart and what I want in my head and what I want in my pocket in terms of finances, that's hitting women very, very hard. And it's almost as if we're being kicked in the ghoulies for the cheek of wanting to have it all, which why not? Of course we should. So anyhow, so I was writing about the fact that child rearing, much as it feels like forever, ends, and it's a tiny part of our total careers. And I'm seeing lots of women who haven't had children, who do want them. Friends of mine who had 6 miscarriages between 37 and 43. That's it. So she bought a piano and a dog, and that was fine. And she's come to terms with the bad things life throws at you. And I've seen people where I am someone who's got 4 very elderly parents, all with dementia, at the same time as a dreadful teenager, because I do as I say, not as I did. And so I think it's been really interesting, because we've got to be very careful what we say about having children being easy, or it's difficult, or it interferes with the money, we've got to tell the truth. But actually, I think there's this, you're a teenager now. If you have a child under 30, it's teenage pregnancy, and it's something to be looked down upon. And if you don't have a baby by 31 and you have problems, well, it's your own fault.
You're old, yeah.
So I just thought I'd cheer everyone up with that.
Did you want to say something? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm a single mom. I've got my son who's 16. I was married to his dad. My ex-husband's incredibly supportive, even now, of my career and with finances and everything. Decisions around education and so on, which is a huge help. But I'm a corporate lawyer, and that was my choice. That was all I wanted to do, and I knew that choice would mean long nights and, transactional deals and cross-border and all of that. And having chosen to do that area of law, I knew then that the childcare option had to sort of support that.
Yeah.
So, so I took the hit that, okay, this is the consequence of my choice. I had an au pair living in. My son doesn't need one now, of course, but for about 10 years, or longer even, we had an au pair living in, which, had its challenges, but that was the only way. But, I accepted that was my choice. Of course, I felt guilty when the au pair picked him up, because the reality was, if the nursery phoned and said he had a high temperature, needed picking up, it was the au pair who picked my son up. And of course, I felt bad about that. But to your point, Sue, I knew it was only for a period of time. Yeah. I knew that this wouldn't go on forever. And, my son's the most amazing young man. I'm so proud of him. And he's made no difference to his overall development. The lies that society tells mothers about working. And I work crazy hours. I can't remember his second birthday, what we did, because I was in the middle of a transaction. So... it has been really hard work, but that was my choice. And equally, it was my choice not to accept global roles, because I knew that would mean uprooting I worked for a global company until recently. And I chose not to relocate for the sake of my son. I need to live with the consequences of my choices, and I'm completely fine with that. So the point you make about choice is so important. The choice, it's my choice. Someone else would have made a different decision. Yeah. But we have to live with the consequences of our actions. Yeah. So I can live with that, and I can deal with it.
Adenyke, do you want to say anything on that?
And I think just a tiny part of it, about the point about choices, is that importance of just being able to appreciate that life is in seasons. So I always, when I speak especially to women, from my experience, I always say that this is quasi roundabout 0 to 20 is the starting season. That's where we're all, just get ready, go. You don't pick who your parents are, you don't pick your gender, you don't pick where you're from, your race, but you get into that place where the language, where you're raised, that's where you're coming into your own, with little or with not much. Round about 20 to 40 is what I term your searching season. And I'm going to just say it for women. This is where, for most women, depending on our experiences, we're coming into a place of our own. What can we do? What are our skills? Am I educated? What do I want in life? And these are the times when we make key choices that where we've come from in our starting season impacts what we're searching for, what we want, what we think is good, what we think is success. If we're able to mitigate and manage that season, that takes us to roughly about the what I call the success season, which is around about 40 to about 50. And I always say that at that stage, and I think I experienced it when I recently turned 40. And all of these are, it can be 15, it can be 22. But I realized when I was going to turn 40, it was that soul-searching moment for me. Because I went back to think about, where I wanted to be, who I was. It's that period where I was bringing all the things I'd done from a business perspective, from my career, from family, to start to, to say, what does success really mean? How do you define that? And that becomes different for different people.
Yeah.
So that when we then move to the next, what I call the significant season, and again, it can be at different points, that's where I feel that we want to leave a legacy. At this stage, you really want to say, this is what I'm leaving behind. And I'll come to it maybe depending on the questions, but I think one thing that as women we need to help each other with is just listening to everything you've all said. If I was in my 20s, I'll pick something up. If I was in my 30s, I'd learn something. I love that. If you have a baby at 30, I can't remember how you said it, and at 31, it's what's taking so long. And to what Funke said about, did I have to make sacrifices? Yes. Would you have been in some of those parties where the moms are talking about all the things they do and you don't even know who any of the moms are? All of that goes on, But once you can have that conversation at different seasons to understand that what do I need? What works for me? And listening to the other women's stories, you can find out what stage of life you're in and then take steps to make that okay for you.
Okay. Is the glass ceiling a thing of the past? You're all smiling. Is the glass ceiling a thing of the past? Adenyke, you want to talk?
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think so.
You don't?
No. I think there are times when sometimes statements can be very general. Mm-hmm. In some situations, in some careers, in some professions, is it possibly? But if we look at it, I'm a very avid news junkie, American politics sort of person. And we can all see in the last elections, forget our politics, it's amazing when we just have, I can count how many female governors that we have in the US, for example. When it comes to politics, and even, within the UK, it's fantastic. We've had 2 female prime ministers, but if we look at the percentage of women who really are in parliament and driving these issues for gender equality and all around the world, I don't think the ceiling is quote unquote broken yet. But sometimes I really do wonder, where is the ceiling?
Okay.
Because at a particular point, and again, I'm coming back to what holds true for women from an industry perspective, and then what also holds true for women from their vision, purpose perspective. Because I'm a firm believer, especially my organization is a faith-based organization, and I'm a very firm believer in being able to understand that every one of us, we're here for a purpose and there's an assignment. There's something we can do to make an impact. And the glass ceiling at times is we individually being able to break beyond the barriers that life may have positioned, and we are very successful in that area. But then we can also look at it from an industry perspective, and that's where I feel there's still more to be done.
You look like you're itching, or am I reading you incorrectly?
So, it goes back to the point I spoke earlier on about the structural inequalities. It exists. It's here. We live in a male world. It's male constructed, and so we are slowly making inroads. In my firm, we have a very healthy female presence in the equity, which is wonderful. But still, we still need to make more and more breakthroughs, and it goes to childcare. A lot of women now in our offices are having children, but they're taking a career break. We want to make sure that they're fully supported when they come back, when they have adequate support. I think there's still many past ceilings that we need to sort of break through. Walls are being constructed as we speak. There's talk of the Trump wall. It's just these walls that we all face. So no, there's so much more we can do, and we will do.
And I think...
Yeah, go for it, Sue. No, go for it.
I was going to say exactly the same. We've just had our second female president since 1929 at the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and there'll be loads of men next because they're all lined up and they're stabbing her in the back. I opened the European Journal of Obs and Gynae the other day, and I saw twice it was 24 photographs of the various editors of the European Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology, which is women's health, and it was two non-white manel, and I just thought, I don't believe 24 men. And I sort of wrote to all the ones I knew on it and said, what are you doing? And they went, oh, we hadn't noticed. And you feel like saying, come off it. So
it's their norm.
It is their norm,
Yeah.
so I think you sort of make a step forward and back, and you're quite right. We can't take it for granted that ceiling's gone, like whack-a-mole, isn't it? Not at all.
We need to create a new normal. Anyone in the audience want to talk about the glass ceiling? Yep.
I think that there definitely is a glass ceiling, and then when you realize that you've shattered perhaps or cracked the ceiling, you realize there's a glass treehouse that is beyond the ceiling, that most of us as women don't get to dwell in. So being on the executive leadership council or leadership board of a corporation, you realize that there's a whole nother level or world that we have yet to sort of lean into and even discover.
So how are some of the ways that we can go about creating a better balance in the workplace, in the home, in society? Because it takes one woman to start making the change, but she's got to bring another woman with her. So we've got a board of 10. There's one woman on the board. She's going to feel lonely. She's going to need support. I'm not talking about what colour she is, what age she is, the fact that she has 2 large breasts and reproductive organs are different to the male. She's going to feel lonely. She's going to need support. She's going to need, you want to talk, don't you? She's going to need some kind of drive behind her to keep her in that position, to prove how effective she is, so that when another woman wants to come, they then can make a difference without feeling as though the men are going, oh my God, they're coming, they're ganging up. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's why they let the Queen be in first. Margaret Thatcher, who pulled the ladder up behind her.
Yeah.
There are women who get on and they're very special and whatever it is, and they don't help the next one. So I think, you and guess who gets picked? And then you get the 12 corporate directorships or whatever, and and they get every job. So sisterhood is, a word that I've only started using again. I haven't
Really?
used. Yeah, it's an embarrassing word. I haven't used for 30 years. But we need to demand more of them.
I think what you were saying is like you need to coach men to be different leaders, because in big corporates at the moment, work in the financial services, it's still the big boys club. And I think that's what you were describing. So yes, there is a glass ceiling. Yes, there's a woman on our board, for example, but she definitely has kind of privately, she's actually, I would like to be in the boardroom. She's behaving exactly as the last 10 board members, because they only exist because they form a compact pack. Yeah. So I think, for me, the journey is also about coaching men to be different leaders. Once they get to a different type of leadership, then we then can also bring this type of leadership in. So I think there's a long journey to get there. But one woman breaking up the glass ceiling is not enough. So effectively, sisterhood, coaching, whatever it is important. But I don't think you just need to coach women out to be getting through the glass ceiling. I think you need to coach men to be different at leading companies.
And allow the ceiling to maybe...
Yeah. And then we talk about diversity, and we have a head of diversity, and they all believe in it, and they're all very genuinely good people, most of the time. 98% of the time. They're trying to do the right thing, but literally they have grown up in generations where being a leader meant a certain things, and I think it's going to take another couple of generations.
So a leader 40 years ago, male, is going to be very different could be very different to a leader today.
Exactly.
Male.
So if Funke, raise our sons a different way, and he becomes a leader, he might become a leader which is different culturally than the ones we have right now in the boardrooms.
But I also think that the reality is that economics drives everything. It drives the way we think, the way we move, the way we organise. And if I was reading a report by Bloomberg, and 70 to 80% of consumer purchases are influenced by women. We are multiple markets. Okay, if we're not buying the consumer products, we're influencing the purchase of these consumer products, and we are multiple markets. We not only bring up children, we look after the elderly. So these products need to be aligned with our values. So pink no longer is a strategy. It's not. So.
It's a very nice pink.
So the change in the boardrooms, all these changes will start happening when the people that hold power realise that putting women on board will actually have a better return on their return of profits. So it makes economic sense. So I think that's what we need to sort of focus on. And
economics drives a lot of what we do. Has anyone seen the film?
People talk about India and China as being these like new emerging markets.
Yeah.
We are the emerging market. Women are the emerging market. Our wealth and our ability to influence choices, consumer products, is a fact.
Anyone seen the film On the Basis of Sex about Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Oh, you saw the documentary. Okay. Have you seen the film? Okay, it's worth seeing. Someone here had their hand up.
Yeah, hi. I just sort of going back to the glass ceiling. In my experience, men are much better at self-promoting themselves
100%.
Within the business, and women are not as good at it.
Not as good, or don't feel that it's our right to do it?
Well, I don't know. I don't even know if it's in vision, but I think that generally, I'm just speaking generally, a lot of women just like things to be fair, and it's like a real classic approach. You don't realise you're falling into that stereotype. I just want it to be fair, and men are kind of and it's just natural. The problem is, I don't know if anyone's read the Sheryl Sandberg book, but she makes a really good point about this, because if women self-promote themselves,
lean in.
If women self-promote themselves in the same way, or sit in their appraisal and I'm worth this much and the rest of it doesn't get received by a man in the same way. And actually, some of the issue is, and I think one of the other ladies touched on it, it's about also educating men to read women in terms of what do I really mean when I say this.
Lady in the black dress, not the pink jacket, the black dress.
I'm disagreeing 100%. I've been 27 years a stockbroker, and it just is true. My colleagues will sell themselves about, if they are value here, they sell themselves here. I'm value here like them, so I sell myself here. So obviously they get it. I never get it because I'm selling myself below them. And we're fair, so I just say the truth and I sell myself at what I think I can do. They sell themselves 50% more. So I haven't learned 27 years. I haven't learned.
But I don't think if you did, I don't think it would be received Cheryl's point. No, I don't think it would be received in the same way. You will come across as greedy.
Well, I'll tell you what. One anecdote. Many years ago, I'm Spanish. I came to England for love. I came with my own with the same company. I said, I fell in love with an English guy, so I'm coming to London. Either you hire me in London or I go to the competition. They said, no, we take you. And then I went for an interview with the competition, and I said, how much should I ask for? And he knew. He knows me, he knows women, he knew I will ask for what I think is fair. So he said to me, I'm going to ask about other stockbrokers, your experience, your age, what they should ask. So if they said X, he went X plus 30%. So he said to me, I've talked to all these women and the stockbrokers, this is what they earn. So I believe that was the truth. So I went to the interview thinking, this is where I'm worth and this is where I deserve. So I asked for X plus 30% and I got it. But only because I have a man behind me telling me to do that.
Yeah.
If not, I
Because
would
they know
never
how
do
they
that.
work.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Wow.
Good for you.
So is part of the balance for better then, not only saying to the men, open the doors, but we've got to equip ourselves to be maybe a bit risky. I was going to say stronger, but I like that. Yeah.
I work in the statutory sector, and so we are very fair and universalist and so forth. But one of the things I think about the gender gap is we need a bit more transparency. I would like to see public everyone's salary and tax, because actually I think people should be embarrassed about not paying enough tax, and we could then just see what everyone else is earning. So when I was the head of department, I got everybody's. I had a spreadsheet, and I had everybody's how many sessions they were doing, and how many hours they were doing, and whether they got merit awards and their seniority. They all hated me equally. It was fantastic. And but actually, it was perfectly clear when we all filled in our BMA diaries about hours that who worked more, men or women? Women. Who worked more, academics or people who did private practice? Academics, correct. So it's perfectly obvious, but anyhow, they got rewarded in a different way. So I just think actually we should be a little bit more transparent about it. And in my specialty in medicine, that we have a thing, we get better over the years, and so not a pay thing, but there are people whose confidence goes up and down like this, and it's too confident. They're very, very dangerous doctors. The heroic model and the taking risks with other people's lives is really dangerous. So actually, what we want is, we want the confidence to match the competence. And then you have women, largely, I'm not really good enough, I'm not good enough. They're terrible, they won't make decisions, they upset the patients, they look as though they don't know what they're doing, they ring you 5 times a night, they never actually get on with the operation on their own. So what we really need is to match competence and confidence.
I like that.
And certainly in medicine, the mismatch is dangerous for patient care. So that's one thing. And then when it comes to the rewards, speaking the truth, we need people with discernment. We actually need to discern bullshit and call it out. Mm-hmm. You are not that good. You are that mediocre. You're worth the same as everyone else, because that's the level we pay because it's fair. We actually need to say as women, it needs to be fair. And we need to call it out a bit. So, and I was on a Merits Award committee where we were looking at all the CVs, and of course the men polished them so much better. But actually, very wise old men and mostly older white men actually, but very wise ones were sitting there, and we had some patient advocates, and they said, where's the evidence that their patient care is better? And people were advised to fill it in. You say, I'm a very good surgeon because my rate of complications in very high-risk patients is, the lowest in the country, or whatever. So actually, let's be fair, let's be transparent, let's get the facts, and let's call out the bullshit and the overconfidence.
Adenyke, I'm going to come to you. There were some hands here. Yes. And I'm just conscious of time, and I don't want to keep people later than 8:30. Yes, young lady, you can speak.
So just 2 points with it. I think maybe it's our value system that we have in the organizations. Instead of teaching men to be different, it's actually changing the values of the organization, because we've been told to look up to heroes and these bold figures that go and they kill the dragon and they, and that's not the value that is going to get us anywhere anymore. And so it's kind of setting that tone. And I've worked for a male boss and 2 female bosses, and the male boss was actually enormously encouraging and was a wonderful mentor, and he had really good values, and I loved working for him. Then I worked for an incredible woman, and the organization was phenomenal, and she led with all of these female characteristics, and they were very much part of our value system, and it's kind of like, that's how we function, so if you want to be part of that, we'd love for you to join. And then my last corporate role, I worked for an awful woman, and I was basically running her company as an MD, and I said, I would really like to be the CEO of this company, because then I thought I can really influence, it was a small company, but I could really influence this change, and I felt I didn't have enough power. So I wanted that, and she said, you will never be my CEO because you will have children. That is not women supporting women. No. Right? So I think it's the value systems and having the right types of leadership in. And I just wanted to say, to your point, there's a phenomenal book written called The Confidence Code. And it actually talks about genetically and biochemically how we've evolved as a gender and why we don't put ourselves forwards. And just the knowledge of that, I've read it, I don't know, I think 2 or 3 times, and I've given it to everybody I know. And I think by reading that book and saying, I am like every other woman, I won't put myself forward. We are in a man's world. This is how they behave. We need to help coach that change in the values and the system, and at the same time, know this is how they're fighting for those jobs. I need to think like that when I go in for the salary, when I go in for the title, when I go in for these things. I have to put that persona in and then be there to lead the change.
From what I'm gathering in the room, I think everybody, every woman, every male in this room is looking to balance for better. And I don't think that it's in any one particular genre of work. It's a global thing, isn't it? It's, you know, we have to start putting ourselves forward without apologising, without justifying. If we're good at the job, we're good at the job. So, yeah, Adenyke, you want to speak, don't you?
Yeah, and I'll just make this very short. And I think it was just in line with what you were saying, that one of the things that when I started looking through working with women and working with youth, and I found that looking at the seasons of life that people are in, being able to find that balance was very strong when we started to encourage a lot of mentoring. I think there's so much value in, at every point in time, we're either a mentor or we're a mentee. Wherever we're going to, there's always, like we said, there's always something we can aspire to as women. So whatever stage we're in, there should be something or a place we aspire to right now that we should be able to identify another woman who's gone even further, that we can build those relationships with. But most importantly, that there's a lot of richness, a lot of experience in this room that we have to consciously, to create this balance, start mentoring other young women in the different seasons. Because, you know, I found out that when I started talking and I started mentoring ladies, it made me also look at myself and identify, did I really settle? Because sometimes we can say what sounds right till you go back and say, do I really do this? Am I that confident? You know, do I allow myself to let my voice be heard in different scenarios? Because I do have that opportunity to work in different, I'm in financial services, I'm in non-profit, I'm going into media, like I was saying, working on a show, and all of these things. I realized I have to keep bringing different skills. And most of the time as women, being able to mentor another woman coming up in her starting or her searching phase goes a long way to help us also revisit our balance and where we want to be and ascribing for more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Sue Bewley, thank you. Razwana Akram, thank you. Adenyke Israel-Bolarinwa, thank you. Thank you, ladies. Let's hope that this time next year when we come back, we can see a definite shift in the balance. That would be really interesting. Yeah? Thank you so much. Thank you very much. You going to close? Yes.
I don't know about you, but I'm still chewing on everything that we've talked about tonight. And it's just been fantastic. So it is a delay on that mouse pad. It's not her. I had tried that earlier. It is a delay. I don't know what that's about. But thank you so much for coming out tonight, for supporting the work that we do. This has been a fantastic dialogue for me. And I know it has been for all of you. I think every woman in this room can relate to, if not 100%, certainly 98% of everything that we've talked about tonight. So thank you so much for coming and facilitating this wonderful dialogue. Thank you all for contributing to tonight. And thank you for supporting, again, Dress for Success and the Power of Women. We have a new initiative. I won't keep you all night. I'm going to show a short video. We have a new initiative, is what I talked about. And this is, again, when we talk about women supporting women. and reaching back and making sure that you not only mentor a woman, but that you think about what you can do to influence the next generation, to influence other women in the trajectory of their lives. It's what we do at Dress for Success every day, and we have an initiative now that's called the Little Black Dress Club. Other affiliates all over the world are doing this, and it is a monthly commitment of some brave women that are going to make the commitment to say, I will help a woman and sponsor one woman a year for Dress for Success, the entire year, the entire process. It's a very small amount. It's 18 pounds a month. You go online, you sign up for it, but you get a whole lot of perks for that. And so we're going to soon have our own charity shop that benefits Dress for Success. I'm wearing one of the gowns tonight. Yes. Fanula is going to hate me for telling you. Is she in the room? Oh, doggone. Never mind. I can't tell you how much I paid for it. I didn't see her standing there. Never mind. All right, fine. I can't tell you, but it was a great deal. And all of the proceeds will go to Dress for Success. And so you'll have VIP access, early sale access. Next year's Power Women Awards, you'll get 2 free tickets. We have designers that are coming to do showcases. You'll get early access for that. Special events that we'll have just for club members. And so it's not just that we're asking for something for you to support another woman, but I think after tonight, we should all take up the charge of doing something. Don't be the woman that pulls the ladder up, extend the ladder down. I had a woman like that. Well, that's another conversation. But you can be someone that helps the women that we serve. And so I'll show a short video, but I also want to give it over to Fanula to say just 1 or 2 words. She is phenomenal. I know, but you're standing there, so come on. But I just wanted to acknowledge Fanula and Susan. Are you here as well? Yes, stand, wave. There's Susan also. And all of our board members. Can all of our trustees please stand that are here? Yes. Thank you so much for everything that you do and everything that you've done. Fanula, thank you for everything that you've done and continue to do every day. I tell everyone she can sell ice to an Eskimo. I have never seen a more passionate woman about what it is that we do, and we would not be here if it were not for her. And so she is a phenomenal female leader. And so I wanted to acknowledge you. With 3 sons, yes. So she's going to raise the next generation of excellent male leaders. It's all on you. But thank you so much for coming out tonight. We have goodie bags for our panelists. We have goodie bags for you as well, Angie. Yes, yes, indeed. And we'll play a short video about the Little Black Dress Club. We're really excited about it. And thank you again for coming out tonight. Thank you.